We're here to talk about our purpose, the purpose of our sector. This is just the beginning of a conversation, and we hope that this will lead to the creation of new networks with common interests. And we're going to be supporting that with a new digital platform called Alchemy to help keep that conversation going. We're about to start off with an introduction on the power of our purpose, and I'd like to introduce John Comber. Some of you will know John from his role as Chief Exec at Greenwich. Some will know John for his role in Solace, but we know John because he's the grit and the oyster, the person that keeps the challenge going in the iESE research programme. John, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to speak at the conference, and thank you to David for the warm welcome to be at Eastbourne.
Thanks. So, first of all, obviously, we always talk about unprecedented times. We're probably talking about it for 10 years, but actually this last 6 months has been particularly challenging. And we're talking about the sector's credit card bill at some stage need repaying. We've had financial challenges for 10 years or more now, and every time local government has had cuts, it's delivered. Can't we just carry on in that vein?
And there are many who think that it's still possible to salami-slice, to carry on with efficiency savings, and it will be possible to bridge the gap with commercial ideas and different ways of operating. But the truth is, many years in the making, the gap between need and financial and all resources in local government is never going to be closed if we continue with the current regime, the current style of local government, the current structure of local government. So actually, it was always predicted by iESE research more than 10 years ago that local government would run out of money, that needs would keep increasing, that resources would become more and more needed, and ultimately it wouldn't be possible to fund local government. So what has the pandemic done? It's accelerated that, and it means now it's in the spotlight. Local government is going to run out of money. It's not going to be able to deliver against the needs that it finds in its community, and it's going to have to do something radical. It can't go back to just being the same structure and carrying on with efficiencies and cuts.
So we've got to do something radical, we've got to do something new, and we've got to do something pretty large scale in terms of impact. So why our purpose? Why do we need to consider our purpose? Can't we just actually get on with that? We know what we need to do and move on. What's the power of our purpose for you?
The challenge at the moment is we've begun to talk about reorganisation, and there is a little in this about Emperor's New Clothing. If you're going to reorganise the deck chairs on the Titanic, is it going to change anything? The reason for purpose being a driver is to start with what really is the purpose of local public services. What are they about? Not what structure is it, what functions does it deliver? If we look at the purpose of local government, and my view would be it should be about creating and sustaining vibrant communities that can deal with the majority of their own needs, then that's a very different looking organisation to one that is trying to deliver against all of the challenges the local community faces, trying to come up with solutions for every problem the community raises. The truth is that we have a very strong local government sector with many, many dedicated locally elected members who represent the democratic process locally. And if we use that wisely and we use it with a purpose to create communities with capacity to support themselves, we will be in a much better position than we would be if we continued to let local government try and meet and be the solution for every challenge.
So that's a fundamentally different model. We're not just doing the same things in a different way. We're actually going to have to do entirely different things. So in terms of, you sort of alluded to it there, but so what do you see our purposes? And we've actually had some of our audience actually already come in with some definitions on as they see our purpose. Can you talk us a little bit about purpose for the sector and what you and others are saying?
Absolutely, and thank you for everyone who's contributed. It's, as you've said, it's fantastic to get people thinking about the purpose of their local council and engage with that. From my perspective, it is about empowering communities, it is about building community capacity, it is about making sure that we have active citizens who participate in their own well-being. And it's not just about doing for people, it's building a community that can do for itself. That means we need neighbourhoods that look after each other. We need community cohesion. We need an active engagement by people. And that's different when you're talking about the council's responsible or the government's responsible. It's a mistake to think there's a cavalry going to charge over the horizon and rescue us from our current situation. There isn't enough money and resources, and there won't be enough money and resources. And because we're seeing an impact on the high street from internet shopping, loss of business rates, which are a fundamental funder of local government, it's a more complex problem than it seems on the surface for many people. We have to find new ways of delivering services, and the most obvious way to do that is to make sure that the community can help themselves.
I mean, that can sound a little bit negative in terms of, you're withdrawing from delivering services and leaving the community to get on with themselves. But I kind of detect what you're saying is it's not that. It's actually finding some way to help stimulate, help to support that vibrant community.
Without strong local leadership, without democratically elected members, without a structure that can control the environment, make it fair, equitable, accessible, and ensure that it's a safe way to interact, it's never going to happen. Yeah. So strong local government is absolutely essential to a community that can help itself. And the ability to build capacity, people don't know what they don't know. They don't know how to do for themselves. It's not been a purpose that has been universally accepted, but we are seeing authorities, and some of those are represented today and here in Eastbourne, represented directly, which are trying to build that community capacity, are working with their residents and communities in very different ways, and we're starting to see new and interesting ways of services being delivered, not in the heart of the council, but actually in the heart of the community, with the council helping, supporting, acting as a catalyst.
And that's certainly for me, and I've been lucky enough to see different councils over the years, and one of my favourites in the UK, East Ayrshire, where during the pandemic they were able to deliver, as many councils were, meals out to residents throughout the period. They even got registered for the Eat Out to Help Out, which I thought was a great bit of a great touch for a local authority. But actually, what underneath it, there was something more important. They'd spent 10 years building up their community capacity, including the farming community. So actually what they were delivering was a quality that actually they couldn't have done. And when I spoke to Fiona, the chief exec there, she said if they hadn't have had that long-term relationship, they couldn't have just turned on, thousands of meals, all the production that required, and deliver at the quality that they delivered. So I think, we're already seeing for some authorities that actually this has been a long-term journey, and actually they're starting to bear fruit in the current circumstances. So you kind of mentioned that in terms of the pandemic that we've sort of had a bit of turbocharging. What has the effect of the pandemic been in terms of helping or hindering us on the way to delivering this community capacity model, the community engagement model that you've talked about?
It certainly accelerated the running out of resources, the building of need. The tragedy of the pandemic itself has caused urgency. But what it's also proved is the necessity of local government and how strong local government is. Local government's reputation has probably never been higher in the public's view. And we've seen in the UK 19% of the adult population volunteering on a weekly basis to help during the pandemic. We have a massive civic mobilisation, people volunteering to come back into the health sector. Are we going to let that fade away, or are we going to build on it and say, we've reached a point now where everybody understands more about local government than they've ever done. Yeah. Members have a much greater opportunity to engage in discussions which are going to be lasting about how communities can interact with them. More importantly, we've got to cease expecting the government and relying on government to come up with solutions and do what local government does best. It's local, it deals with its local community, it knows how to deal with its local community. It needs to be big, brave and bold and get on with creating communities that serve and can empower themselves. And that's really reliant on all locally elected members playing a part with their deep emotional attachment and knowledge of their wards and being able to utilise that so that they can work out the best way of meeting needs without having to recourse to the public sector, having to ask the public sector to get engaged. What that will allow local councils to do is lose some of the less complex needs and concentrate on those who need it most and get out the way of those other services and areas that the public can get involved in and deliver themselves.
Yeah, okay. So there's been some great examples. I mean, one just along the coast from here in Rother, where I know that the authority was first job in the pandemic was actually taking those free meals that had been delivered to people that actually didn't need them, even though they were shielding, and taking to those that did need them, needed the financial help that weren't shielding. So that local knowledge certainly has proved itself within the pandemic. So you've talked about the purpose and you've talked about enabling community. Do you have a kind of clearer definition of what that might mean for our councils out there in terms of their role? What does that encompass? What does it mean in
It certainly
totality?
means they've got to move away from building strategies, plans and objectives that are based on them being a standalone organisation. They've got to work in collaboration and write strategies and plans that the public are involved in, that the public and their residents can understand how they can play a part in delivering them, and even at the most best end, they deliver them themselves without the local public service being involved at all. Now, how do you write a strategy that isn't a business objective, isn't sustaining the organisation, but get out the way and write an objective that says, community, you've been involved in this, we are prepared to work with you and use our capacity to help you to help yourself.
Yeah.
Now, it's not an abdication of responsibility. Without strong local public services, it could never work. There are vulnerable people, vulnerable communities, hard to reach communities. All of that is well understood by local government and its elected members and is easily accessible. It's a much harder challenge to build a strategy that the public will see as theirs and that they've got a big role to play in delivering it.
Yeah.
But we know through volunteering that there is a civic capacity that we can draw on. Yes, the pandemic is an absolute crisis and a terrible thing, and many have lost their lives. But at the same time, sometimes we're at our best in the biggest disasters. And it seems to me we have an opportunity for the industry now to move it in a different direction, not through reorganisation by government, but by looking at what the purpose underlying local government is and then applying that to build bigger, stronger and more resilient communities.
That sounds like a really exciting opportunity. I mean, to me, that suggests two things. One is that actually we need to fundamentally redesign every service from being something that serves the production of service to being something that serves creating that capacity in the community, whether that be a regulatory service all the way to the more obvious care services. So it's actually flipping that role and flipping that relationship completely. The other one, of course, is that someone has to have foresight. And we're in the pandemic now, and actually some people are saying we could have and should have predicted that. In fact, we even did some trial runs of how we would respond, and we didn't learn those lessons as a country. But actually we are getting better at analytics. We are getting better at predicting what's coming down the line, whether that be fuel poverty, etc., and actually trying to plan for that. So that kind of role with the community is actually perhaps keeping your eyes on the horizon about what might come across and helping to create the capacity that will meet those things and create that resilience for the future. So that's been a great introduction, John. Thank you for that. We're going to now delve into a number of different areas of subject matter that relate to this, have a common thread to this, and we'll look forward to seeing you later. Cheers then.